early in the morning and your interest in the topic. My name is Ayman. With me is Brother Zain, one of our young teachers. Inshallah, today we want to keep it very interactive. So we don't have a very specific agenda, but the general point is how to collaborate with our school to help our young people, inshallah, grow and develop their life. Without taking too much, inshallah, introductions, maybe we can show you a quick video about what we are, all about the organization, who's behind it. So inshallah, Brother Zain can show a quick video, inshallah. Bismillah. So, alhamdulillah, quick overview of the organization. As you can see, it's all about leadership development, youth empowerment. Alhamdulillah, 2009, we recognized that the Muslim Ummah in this country requires some leadership capacity building. And we found that starting with the youth makes the most sense. They're learning, and they're the ones who are going to carry, inshallah, the message in the future. So today, inshallah, we want to talk about the challenges that our youth are facing today in this society and what we could do as parents working, together or with educators to, inshallah, mitigate this and help them, follow the path of the Prophet ﷺ. So maybe we take a quick review on the survey results, inshallah, to see, where the interests are and how things are going, inshallah. At any point, feel free again to get some refreshments. So while we're pulling it up, what is that one leadership trait that was mentioned towards the end of the video that kind of is, we feel is important? Did anyone remember what that trait was? It was mentioned towards the end of the video. So there are a number of leadership qualities that were throughout the video, right? Who remembers some of them? There was a retreat in the mountains for middle schoolers or fourth graders. Anyone remember what that quality was? Courage, okay. Courage was the winter one, where they were in the snow tubing. But courage, that's one quality that was mentioned, okay. The mountain, we usually do patience there, sabr. So we talk a little bit about levels of patience, the types of patience, and why patience? What's the benefit of patience? They go on a hike in a mountain. They hike about 1,200 feet up the mountain, and they get exhausted. And the reward is to find a stream of water where they can swim a little bit and then go back, to their bus. They have to go downhill again, So that's another quality that was mentioned. What other qualities do you remember in the video? So towards the end, it said, support what? Support the Muslim American identity, right? So identity is a very important leadership quality as well, because that defines who we are, right? As a matter of fact, even strategically, this nation, there was a study by the Department of Defense to find out what causes nations to collapse. And they came up with 7 factors, and number 3 on that list was what they called a uniform national identity. If a country starts to lose its identity, it's on its way to crumble. And that was a strategic initiative that, the administration is focusing on. So that's very important. So inshallah, let's see how our interests are. How disciplined is your child or children? Do you remember what was 5 and 1? 5 was very disciplined. The other way. Okay. So some of us, most of us, feel that our children are not disciplined. SubhanAllah. Okay. Let's go down. How connected are you with your teacher? So the majority, about 65%, say they connect once a month. So they're in touch, about on a monthly basis, and about 35% say once a year. So that's a little bit infrequent, especially in this climate in these times and days. And I'm a parent, and I'm probably in that green box as well. I'm a I'm in that box as well. But we need to be more engaging with, especially the teachers, the educators. If your child does sports, you want to talk to their sports coach as well, because these are all people in their life that you can reach out as a resource to help you in your journey in raising your children, inshallah. Okay, next one. What are your child or children's top challenges? So, bedtime routine, trying to be perfect, try to play with, they're playing with phones, having Muslim friends, doing good for now, alhamdulillah, using technology, so phones again, trying to get them to pray their salah, their relationships with other kids, so maybe they're a little aggressive kids, maybe they don't control their emotions, and again, salah comes up, gender issues, so maybe, relationships and things like that. So, generally speaking, it seems salah and technology, how to use, technology responsibly is the 2 big ones, and then maybe relationships, friends, could be the 3rd thing. Oh, there's some more. Yeah. Okay. Focus, lack of Islamic education. So, show of hands, how many parents here have children in public school? Okay, so majority. Islamic school? And that's a full-time Islamic school? Okay. So the parents who have their children in public school, do they also go to a weekend school here at the masjid? Okay, inshallah. So the majority is public school. We can go down. So yeah, lack of Islamic education. In this case, of course, you want to leverage weekend school and then augment it with other things, activities that the masjid might do. We can talk a little bit about that, inshallah. Negative thoughts such as I can't do that. Okay, so being motivated, self-esteem. All right, was that the last question? There's one more? Okay. All right. So it seems most children are like in the elementary level, maybe a few middle. How many have middle school youth or children? Okay. And elementary is the rest? Okay. Any high school youth? Okay. College? Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about everything, inshallah. Maybe the emphasis will be on the younger folks a little bit. So let's go to the presentation that's 5 skills. Yeah, okay. So obviously there's so much to cover, right? The key thing here, generally speaking, if there's anything we want to remember today, is trust. It's building trust with our children, right? People in general like to work with people they trust. And there are things that can break the trust with a child. For example, exposing them in front of other people, even if that person is their parent. So you might be a mom and you notice something with your son or daughter, and you go tell your husband or spouse in front of your child, you broke the trust. You could still tell your spouse, but just in private, not in front of the kid. So that you, as we say, keep their face, right? So that's a mistake that a lot of us do quite often. Another thing is calling them names. You're irresponsible, you're lazy, get up, you're this, you're that. They might still trust us, but that's where they lose confidence. So the person, the parent who put in, they say, I can't do this, that's part of it. Subconsciously, when we tell them, you're not studying hard enough, you're playing always, they start to have negative thoughts. Psychologists actually have done studies, and a lot of people who do life skills training, they say, if you get up every morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and say, today's going to be a great day, today I'm going to do great things, inshallah, you'll probably perform something positive. But if you get up and you say, today I can't make anything happen, you're going to eventually become a negative person and you're going to procrastinate and so forth. So the same thing applies to our children. If they keep hearing negative feedback or criticism, they're going to start to get demotivated at best. And they might start doubting themselves or even get depressed at worst. So, there's a spectrum of where every kid can respond. Let's move on, inshallah. All right, so we can talk about the relationship with our children, a little bit about adolescence, common barriers and things that are in our households we don't notice, just like the example I mentioned, and then 5 skills that can create this healthy relationship. Quite often, also, parents wait till too late to do certain things in life. So there was a question here about bedtime, right? I don't know how old that child was, but let's say they're 9. It's not at 9 when you're going to teach them what time to go to bed. It's really at 3 and 2, right? So for example, I'm originally Arab. Arab families, we hang out together in someone's home on a Friday night till like 12, 1, usually 12:30 at the most, which is kind of late even for an adult, right? Physically, I can't do that anymore. I used to do that when I was younger. But now, in the gathering, some of my friends, they have children who are just recently married, and they have like a 1 or 2-year-old. And that 1 or 2-year-old is still awake. They're running around, they're drowsy, tired, whatever. But that's exactly the problem. 5 years later, it's going to be very difficult to tell that child when they're 7, go to bed, it's 10 o'clock. Because already for 5 years, even if it doesn't happen every week, let's say it's once a month, for 5 years, once a month, they're used to staying up till midnight or 1 o'clock by the time they get home, right? And which means Saturday, they're not focused, they're tired, they're sleeping in till 10, 11 in the morning. Their whole Saturday schedule, i.e., their discipline, is disrupted, right? So really, these things start years ahead of time. Just like, the Prophet ﷺ, told us that the rights of our children upon us, first right, is to choose their mother, right? And that happens before even the kid has even come to this world. So similarly, some of these things happen early, and that's what we want to become more cognizant of, inshallah. Especially, some of us have, cultural habits that we have developed over the years. All right, so let's move on. And again, at any time, please, intervene, raise your hand if there's a question. Yeah, so here's a hadith narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. She said that a Bedouin came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "You kiss the boys, the young children. We don't do that with our children." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "What can I do to someone who Allah has taken compassion out of his heart?" He's talking here about boys who are the children of these parents, right? That's another thing we have in some of our cultures, is we feel it's not appropriate to kiss our 7-year-old boy before he goes to bed, whether it's the dad or the mom. Or if they grow up, now they're 15, they're a young teenager in high school, it's like, it's not right. No, they still need love. They still need attention, especially from the parents, right? So there's nothing wrong to hug your child, your teenager, even your college kid, they're still human beings. They need that love. I was attending a workshop, Sheikh Yasser Fazaka, and he was talking about marriage, right? The natural instinct for a human being to start thinking about marriage is around 16, 17. That's when a normal human being starts to think about next stage in life. And maybe by 20, they're kind of ready to have some sort of relationship. But in today's society, people rarely get married that early, maybe 25, 27, right? But they've reached puberty at 14. So from 14 to 27, 28, which is 14 years, right? What are they doing? They're just, they're not following the fitrah. And there's so much distraction around them. And as parents, we're even making it difficult for them, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is that it doesn't matter if your child is 22 in college, he still needs compassion from his closest people, parents and friends, right? So the way we need to look at this, of course, it's a gift, but it's a test. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَعْلَمُوا, know that your children and your wealth is a big test. It's a test in your patience, a test in your dedication, your commitment. It's a lifetime test, inshallah. All right, so what are some situations we can apply this concept of care and love and compassion with our children? Some examples from real life, everyday scenarios. How can we foster that? Yes, brother. Text your children, exactly, mashallah, when not just when they're late or when they're in trouble, like, where are you? You're supposed to be here an hour ago. No, you can text them in the middle of the day. Assalamu alaikum, habibi, how are you, sweetie? How are you doing? How's your day so far? I just finished lunch, I finished work, whatever, I miss you. You can send them a smiley face, a heart, something like that, mashallah. All right, what else can we do? I remember a brother, this is a great example. We might take these things for granted or think this is trivial, but I hear this a lot from young brothers. Like, they tell me, I'm not like that. I was like, what do you mean? Like, my family doesn't do this stuff. Like, my family, we don't text each other like that. Or, I'm not going to say what he told me because I don't want to burn it for you guys. But these are little things, but they make a huge impact in the mindset of the young folks. All right, what else can we do to instill an atmosphere of love and create? Playing with them, if they're young and children, spending quality time, right? So playing with attention, not just, okay, yeah, here's the ball, you kick it and you're looking at your phone. Great example, right? So giving them quality time, actually playing with them, and that's where the test comes in. Who 30-year-old or 40-year-old adult wants to play some little silly game that 7, 8-year-old is playing, right? We all are busy, we have other interests, but that's where we have to exhibit patience. as adults, right? I'm going to be patient for the next 45 minutes and sit down with Omar and play whatever, chess with him, right? And you might be the mom and you're tired, you have a headache, you've been at work all day long, or you've been doing things in the house, but that's where it pays off later, inshallah. Because when we play with him for 45 minutes when he's 7, now we have a reason when he's 14 to tell him, hey, can I come with you and Ahmed to this hangout dinner at the halal place? He's not going to be surprised, right? So you can go drop him off. He can sit with Ahmed somewhere and you're on the other side of the store. You just go shopping, come back. It's not going to look weird. But if at 7 I didn't play with him and I come at 14, it's like, you're going where to eat kebab? But okay, what time will we be back? Can I come with you guys? Or can I drop you off? I was like, no, Baba, why? It's going to be a strange thing for him because for 7 years we didn't do that. I mean, what other examples can we do to foster that type of atmosphere in the home? Right, mashallah. So showing them that you have interest in their life, and that's one great example, to understand their hobbies, how they want to enjoy their time, and so forth. So subconsciously, they understand that dad or mom have an interest in what I'm doing. Someone mentioned that the child doesn't care. Sometimes we hear that from high school kids, right? They're going through difficulty at school and they're getting a bad grade, and then they tell their parent, I don't care, right? Basically, what they're saying is, I don't know what else to do, and you never showed interest in what I'm doing today, so why are you bothering me with my low grade? I don't even care myself. So that's a great way also to show that atmosphere, inshallah. Right. Okay, so the brother is talking about listening to the children. We can talk a little bit about active listening, inshallah, later today. But listening does two things. One, like the brother mentioned, it educates you about their interests. That's number one. Number two, it teaches them respect. So we want them to be respectful young adults and adults, but we have to show them how to do that. And one way of doing it is we ourselves listen to them. So when they see that we're listening, we're not interrupting them, one, they build confidence that what they're saying is meaningful and people want to listen to it till the end. And two, we show them that we care, we respect what they're saying, even if it's silly, nonsense, kid stuff. You know, my daughter comes back from college or school and she rambles for 15 minutes, and after 10 I'm like zoned out. And her mom says, okay, enough, good, we got the story, right? But and then she looks at us like, you don't care about what happens at school, right? So showing them that we genuinely care gives them that sense of identity, confidence, and number two, that we respect what they're talking about. So these are some examples. Some are, directly physical things. You can show them a hug or a text message, or things that are subtle through our communication. All right. As we know, adolescence is kind of like the preteen age to 19 or 20, 22. And that's really a very fast growth stage in a human's life. So many things are changing from a child to a young adult to an adult, very fast. Especially in these days and ages where technology is so prevalent, things are changing fast in the community, society. It's very confusing for young people to figure things out. So we want to pay extra attention. Sometimes my older daughters tell me, you didn't notice that, referring to our youngest, who's 14, that she was crying last night. I was like, how do you know? Well, she's right next door in her room. I can hear her crying. I was like, oh, okay. And we figure out that maybe she's having difficulty with homework and she's too embarrassed to ask for help. So sometimes kids just don't know what to do. All right, let's move on. Okay, so what are some of the changes you're witnessing that you're confused about? You don't know what to do. All of a sudden, this little boy you had in the home who was running around, now he's like a young man. but he's still a child. Like you just realize that all of a sudden. Or your daughter all of a sudden became a different person. What are some examples you can share with us? Or your kindergartner now is no longer a kindergartner, and you just taken by surprise. You didn't know what to do. Tfadl.
Just the alone time, they prefer being alone. Like how to, like the challenge is how to do the balance between, like if the parent want to have some conversation, hanging out with the kid, his priority is to have to be alone, just to be alone more, and also like close friend. Like his friend is more important than family. So how to do this balance between lecturing and hanging out, because he loses interest in having a conversation, just a conversation with the parent.
MashaAllah, that's a great example. Jazakallah khair for sharing. So sometimes they're young. We spend a lot of time with them. We take them when we're going to do chores. We hang out with them. We take them places, the farm down the street, the petting zoo, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, they're telling us, no, I don't want to go. And we're frustrated. It's like, come on, let's go out. No, I don't. And like the brothers said, they just need time by themselves because now they're a little older and they want to start thinking about other things. Or we're still thinking that they still want to go to that farm, right? That they went to when they were 5, but now they're 8. And we didn't notice that those 3 years made a difference in their development. For me, for example, my daughters, when they transitioned from like childhood to preteens, they started not wanting to go out with me because I'm just a guy. They want to do girl stuff. And it took me a while to understand that. It's like they don't want to go out with me. But that's part of reality. There could be other ways to still engage with them, but understanding their perspective and so forth is also important. And of course, boys are different than girls. All right. Any other examples you've witnessed that a change? Mhm. Okay. Right, mashallah. So first is content or hobbies or activities. A 3-year-old, it's easier to go to the public library, pick up a few books that are decent, good. They align with our Islamic values and principles, the cow on the farm or the mouse and the cat or whatever it is, then you read to them before they sleep. They're 3, they're 5, great. Now they're 10. They want to read stories, novels, stuff like that. For us as a parent, it's more difficult because we don't know what's in that book. And choosing and finding this literature might be more difficult. There might not be Islamic literature that reflects also the Islamic identity and values and things like that. So, as parents, here's where our homework starts, right? Before they get to 10, while they're still 7, you want to start researching, okay, what will he or she be reading when they get to that age, right? How do I expose them to science and technology and math so they don't, miss out on that? That's something I kind of missed the boat on. None of my daughters like science or STEM. They're all into other fields, alhamdulillah. But because when they were younger, I didn't, exert enough effort. We took them to some competitions here and there, but it wasn't enough in comparison to other things that they did, like essay competitions and other types of competitions, more on the humanities side, like literature and art and writing and things like that. But they didn't do too much of science and so forth. All right, good. What other things have you witnessed as a change? Oh, the other point the brother mentioned is also changes in society around us, things that are being talked about more, and then they're exposed to it, especially if they go to public school. How do I get ready to address these things? Right? Some of us sometimes we feel uncomfortable talking about something or addressing it, either lack of knowledge or we're just not comfortable about it. So we dismiss it hoping like someone else will take care of it or won't come up or whatever. But that's rarely the case. Sometimes we go to schools and we ask people, young people, a question, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is a controversial issue in society, like gender identity. Basically telling us we want to learn about this thing that people are talking about, and so forth. All right, great. So let's move on a little bit, inshallah. So common barriers, things that usually happen that creates problems between a parent and child. Interruptions is an example. You're at the dinner table with your child, he or she's back from school, they're telling you about something, and then in the middle of their story, you say, okay, honey, just finish your food. Habibi, eat that chicken, right? You just broke, the flow right there. The kid is so excited to tell you about the funny thing in the class or something that was going on or the problem with the teacher or whatever it was, and now you interrupted the flow and you changed their focus to something completely in their mind so trivial, like finish the chicken. I'm telling you about, whatever happened here. So interruptions, especially if there are too many, they cause what we talked about earlier, lack of respect, self-identity issues, trust, possibly down the road. So that's one example. Jumping in with advice. We love our kids so much that sometimes we volunteer too much advice when it's not even asked. We see our child coming back from school, he doesn't look happy, he throws his backpack, he goes to his room, he slams the door. I mean, obviously there's something not right with him, but he's not ready now for advice. So mom rushes up, well, Habibi, what's going on? What happened at school? Right? We're trying to give advice. He didn't ask for advice. So we want to wait a little bit. We want to analyze the situation, understand what went on. So when we give advice, we're giving relevant advice. Because what could happen, we can give advice that's sound and correct, but it's irrelevant. You're telling me about, homework when I got bullied. Or you're telling me about bullying when I got a bad grade. They're irrelevant. And subconsciously, what I put in my mind, my parents don't understand. You hear that a lot. My parents don't understand. They're from the old generation, So you want to kind of deal with them as if you're dealing with an adult, regardless of their age. But your discussion is more simpler so that they can understand. Or judging attitudes without validating what's behind it. Quite often, as parents and educators, we see symptoms. We don't see the root cause. The F grade that the kid is getting, or the child he hit or she hit, or the toy they grabbed, that's not really the problem. There's something underlying that's causing these issues. There's a frustration that the kid is going through, and because of that, he's pulling the toy. And that's where we want to uncover, things. And it could take a while. It could take weeks, months, sometimes more. It could take, and this is where the partnership with the school and other people come to play, is discussing these things with the school teacher. A lot of times parents feel like this is private, I shouldn't tell the teacher about this problem because it might give a negative impression about my child. Actually, on the contrary, if you tell the teacher, I'm seeing this behavior at home, are you seeing something similar at school? At home, he always pulls toys from his siblings. Do you see at school he always takes things from his peers? Right? If that pattern is consistent, then you and the teacher can work on things together. The teacher could tell you, yeah, I see that when this happens. So now you understand the triggers. And you could check at home if the triggers are the same or something else. And vice versa, right? So that's why engaging with other care providers is really important. Even sometimes when you go to the doctor, you can tell the pediatrician, this is what we're starting to notice, but we don't know why. So it takes a while to really, do some analysis to figure out the root cause. Okay, we can, inshallah, move on. All right, so what are some barriers you've witnessed in your households, regardless how old your child is? It's a safe environment, don't worry. It is a live stream, though. I need to, I think. Right, brother? Yeah. Okay. Any barriers you're seeing?
Yeah, so the most common things I see is that they have difficulties opening up and saying what they want to say or tell the story they had in school, and that really takes time. So, yeah.
Okay. So opening up, and that's not unique to youth or children. I mean, even us as adults, if we have a bad day at work, I mean, how many of us here, be honest with yourself, the first thing you go to your spouse is like, I had a bad day. We don't really do that, right? Usually the other party notices something and they try to nag us about it, and we might tell them or we might not, right? So that's human nature. So we want to create an environment for them to come forward, to open up, right? Whether it's an adult or a child. With adults, it's easier because we're more mature, we understand boundaries and so forth. But for children, they create actually barriers as they grow up because of society and what we tell them is appropriate and not. Right? Young children would just open up and say anything. You see that a lot. So that could be a barrier, right? And how do we mitigate that barrier? That they're not opening up. What can we do as a parent? What would the process be?
So when they are very little, like 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, when they do understand, is a slow process. The biggest thing is this: we have to respect our kids, and we have to do what they want from us. We have to build a good relationship with our kids. So from where we all, back home, Middle East, and Pakistan, India, in our countries, our parents and kids does not have a big relationship as in this country. I have noticed, because we do not have a lot of extended families, so we spend a lot of time with our kids. So the biggest thing is this relationship, stronger relationship with kids, and trust. For instance, if they did anything bad, so they should be confident that I did this thing bad. So for instance, if we punish them, next time they won't tell us. We do not have to punish them. We have to say, okay, that's okay. It can happen. It was also happened with me when I was little, so don't worry about that. So trust and respect is very important. Once they do grow up, then slowly whatever things goes bad with their life, they will explain, they will tell us. And as a parents, it is our responsibility to tell them these solutions with examples. So in this country, parenting is a very challenging job. This is other kind of job without pay. When you work, they will pay you, but here we have to pay them. So it is not easy job in this country.
Yeah. Right, Jazakallah khair. So a couple of things the brother
I
mentioned.
just wanted to add a little bit. So that's a good example, again, the background some people come from, and sort of, let's say, a culture, existing in a country. But I think that's good to tell, ignore some of the things, but you have to really tell the kids when it is wrong. It's not, you cannot say them when it is not wrong, still it is okay. So you have to be in a position to tell them this is right and this is wrong. So it should be very clear.
Right.
That's very important.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. And then we'll go to the sister in the back. I think you had your hand raised. So a couple of things the brother mentioned is trust, right? And kind of giving them some responsibility with a level of risk, right? Because that's really how people learn. So sometimes we need to let go, allow them to do an activity, a chore, knowing that, yeah, they might break the plate. But so what? It's a $2 plate, right? And if it breaks, then I can teach them how to hold it properly the next time and so forth. Now, also having a little bit of emotional intelligence, understanding our children would help. One child would allow us to teach them beforehand. So let me show you how to wash a dish. And you do this and you do that so it doesn't slip from your hand and so forth. Another child is not. Their learning method is different. They're going to learn by experience. So with that one, I'm going to take more risk, but I'm going to be careful that if the plate breaks, they won't get hurt. Because maybe that's a risk I don't want to take. I'm okay with breaking the plate, but not cutting the child's hand, for example, right? Or finger or whatever. So that's one element of taking risk, which would build trust, and then reassure them that this is okay, this happens, and so forth. Now, your point also is very valid. What's the definition of okay? Right? And that's where sometimes we kind of vary quite a bit from not only the norms of society, but also even our own deen. For example, and we'll talk about that later, but this is an example that just happened a week ago, right? A young brother, he's 17 and a half, so he's in driving learning age. All his peers at school already have a driver's license, but his parents don't want to get him a driving permit, right? And they don't want to train him. They don't want him to go to driving school. But then, they have a little bit of trouble, of course, taking him places. And now he's about to go to college. He's involved in his masjid, his community, so he wants to go places. So he tells an adult in the community, when you're driving me home, can I drive? He's legal. He can drive with a permit. So here the young person is not doing anything illegal. It's not haram. It's part of his normal growth. But the parent is objecting to that for a reason, a different reason that has nothing to do with driving, right? So in this case, we're not building trust, right? And we're not making it clear to them what's okay and what's not, right? What's not okay is they lie to their parent. That's not okay, right? But it's okay to drive as long as it's legal and halal and so forth. So you might in your household say it's not okay to break the plate. Someone else might say it's okay. But where is the standard? The standard for us as Muslim parents is the Prophet ﷺ. Is it halal or haram or makruh or mustahab, right? Where does this happen? If we're breaking the plate intentionally, then it's makruh, of course, right? It's a shady, we can't say it's haram, like maybe it's makruh, depends, right? Why the person's doing it. But if it's an accident, it's okay. Because accidents happen. We're not perfect human beings, right? Because it's an accident. But if the child intentionally goes to the kitchen and takes the plate and smashes on the floor, yeah, that's not okay, right? Why? Because the niyyah is not a pure niyyah, the sincerity. So that's how you can reconcile. And by explaining to the child these concepts, you're also helping them build their Islamic identity. You're helping them reconcile things that are at home with society, with the deen. Right? Because sometimes we paint a picture of the deen that Muslims are perfect people, they're angels. They don't make all these mistakes because Islam is perfect, hence we think that Muslims need to be perfect. We're human beings. So as human beings, we are going to make mistakes. We're going to forget. We're going to sometimes not have enough power and stamina to do certain things. We're going to let go of opportunities. That's how nature is. So the key point is to teach the child how to deal with those situations. Because they're going to face them in life, right? So there's two schools of thought, quote unquote, in parenting. There's let me shield my child, put him in a perfect environment so he's a great person and, he stays like that. Another school of thought is let me teach my child all the tools that he or she can have at their disposal. So regardless of what type of challenge they face, they know how to deal with it. And Islam is about the second. When we look in the Quran, we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about sincerity and taqwa, ikhlas and iman, things that have to do with the heart of the believer, building the believer, right? It talks about the external impact of life on the believer, but much less in the Quran. It talks about good companionship, yes. But how many times does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about good companionship in the Quran compared to taqwa? Very little, right? Compared to ikhlas, compared to sincerity and things like that. So really, what we want to do is build a strong personality because society would change. Today it's LGBT, tomorrow it's something else. Next century it's something else. Who knows? But if we have a strong foundation, inshallah, then we would behave based on that foundation. All right, let's move on. So we don't... Oh, I'm sorry, sister, you also had your hand up. You wanted to share something? Did she walk out? Okay, we'll come back to her. I think she walked out maybe. All right, so 5 skills that are important for a parent to practice and be skilled at. We mentioned patience, right? There's different levels of patience as mentioned in the last ayah of Surah Al-Imran. Uzburu wa sabiru wa rabitu. Sabr, patience is to deal with things that are annoying, but you're not suffering. Like it's a little hot in the room, you're sweating, you're waiting in a long queue, in a line. So you're not physically harmed, you're not bearing, financial losses necessary. It's just inconvenient, it's annoying to you. That's being patient. So you're waiting until that happens. Sabiru, you're persevering. Now you're starting to feel some pain. It's starting to hurt you. This inconvenience, now it's not just inconvenience of playing with Omar for 45 minutes. It's actually painful. I have to take time out of work to go to Omar's school to talk to his teacher. So there's a little bit more of pain, financial impact, things like that. That's sabiru. Warabitu. Rabitu, now you're like in a storm. Things are just out of control. The school is calling, you need to take Omar to the pediatrician, and then go do some blood work, and do that, and go talk to his teacher. It's just too much. You're stressed out. Now you're suffering, you're in the middle of a storm, and you're like trying to steadfast, stay put. So patience has levels, and as parents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might test us in all three levels, or maybe two of them, or maybe one. So patience starts at the very beginning, as a father or a mother, from changing the diaper to spending time on the dinner table with them, quality time, where we're sitting, eating, talking together, and things like that, to studying with them when they're little, guiding them to how to find help, as they grow up and so forth. And then when they're in their teenage years, listening to them, looking at their facial expressions when they come back from school, the way they talk, is he or she always in the room, closing the door on them? I mean, yes, they need quality time by themselves, but not to that extent. Everything has to be in balance. All right. The other key important skill is communicating, how to talk to them, how to convey information. Sometimes we exaggerate, a little bit when we talk about our kids or talk to them. You're always late. I mean, is he really 100% late? Or is he late 50% of the time? Big difference. When we say always, that means 100%, right? So exaggeration doesn't help, whether it's positive or negative. If it's too much exaggeration in the positive side, then they don't take us seriously. They think we're faking it. We're just we're not real people, or we don't live in this real life and so forth. So communicating is a really important thing. We can go to the make the click bridge the gap. There's this chart there we can take a quick look at. It's the PDF. All right, while Brother Zain pulls it up, let's talk about some communication challenges we've experienced at home, especially with the high schooler age group or college. Yes, sister.
Like I can take care of myself. I don't need to talk about it. I'll handle it myself. So there is like this, especially with the teenagers, the like separation between the parent and the child, or the push of like, I got this. I'm almost a man.
Okay. So you feel they're talking back, maybe a little bit. There's a little bit of arrogance. Okay. Okay, so how can we handle something like that? You have a 16-year-old and you want to give them advice, and their response is, Mom, I got it. Don't worry. I got it, don't worry. This is all he says. Okay, mashallah. So one thing you can do is what we call positive reinforcement. So he says, I got it, Mom. You say, of course you got it. I know, you're a young man now, you're 16. So you reinforce some facts that are true. He can't dispute that. And he can't label you as a fake person trying to just promote him when that's not the case. So you say, of course, I know you got it, you're 16, you understand what you're doing. And as you know, I'm older, I have more life experience, but I don't know everything in life. So also, I'm sure you can teach me some things. So inshallah, once you get your thoughts together, I'd love to hear you out. I'd love to know what your plan is, right? So you're reinforcing and you're giving them a little bit of responsibility and an opportunity to come back to you to teach you or share with you what they're coming up with. All right, great. No. Right. Now, sometimes as parents, we try to show our youth or children that we know everything. And as they grow up, they know that's not the case, right? And that creates a barrier as well of trust. Like, you're not honest, you're not truthful, or you're not real. You think you know everything, but you really don't, because the world has changed or has expanded and so forth. So being honest with them, saying, I don't know about this, and maybe you can tell me, you know. Even simple things, with an example, even a high schooler or even a college person, you can say, Muhammad or Fatima, can you show me how to do something on the phone or Instagram? Or I saw this thing on Instagram, it's so cool. How do you guys do that? Can you teach me? Right? And it has nothing to do with this other issue. But by doing that, you're creating an opportunity for them to demonstrate that they are more experienced in some subject area. Right? So we always say, leverage opportunities. As parents, we have so many opportunities. Some of them are negative experiences. You know, your son talks back to your mother, to his mother. We as parents would frown from that. It's like, look, he's not disciplined, he's not respectful, which is true, but it's also an opportunity for a discussion. So mom can just say, you know, Muhammad, I feel hurt. That's how mom feels. No one can dispute that. We call that the I message. That's part of communication. Zain, if we can go, there's a chart that has like a number of bubbles in it, like page 15 or something like that. So the I message takes the situation and brings it to you. I feel hurt. I feel insulted. I feel disrespected. Your son or daughter cannot challenge that. That's how you feel. What they could do, they can call you a name. They can say, oh, you're a spoiled guy. Oh, dad, you're so soft. Or, you know, I don't care how you feel. They can say that. But they can't say, no, you don't feel that, because that's how you feel. It's very difficult for anyone to dispute that. So you bring the attention to you. I say, I feel disrespected, and you just walk away. And now let his dad go talk to him 2 days later. Ya akhi Muhammad, mama is very upset. She's so hurt. For 2 days, she could not sleep. Man, you can't do that to your mom. And now his dad is talking to him like a friend, not a father, because he's 16. You can't do that to your mom. Your mom is your ticket to Jannah. Imagine me doing that to your grandmother. How would she feel? How would you feel as a grandson, right? So now he's talking to him as a friend. That we call, this is an opportunity for coaching, for development, for communication skills, and so forth. So even when negative experiences like that happen in the household, these are things you latch onto, and you don't have to, remember patience. You don't have to act right away. You can wait a day or two. As a matter of fact, it's usually better to wait a period of time so we calm down, we're more rational in our discussion, and so forth. Let's keep scrolling down a little bit. More to the presentation. Keep going. Yeah. Oh, you can't see it here. Okay. More. Okay, one more, or two more. Back, up, down. Yeah, keep going down. More. It's a chart. You'll see it in a minute. All right, there we go. If you can make this wider, bigger, yeah. All right, so this chart, let's scroll down in the middle, okay, has cornerstones of communication, a message. What is a message? The intention of a message is to communicate information from one party to another. That's the purpose. Psychologists say that human beings, when they say anything, there's a reason behind it. Sometimes we don't know the reason. So when you yell at your child, subconsciously, there's something you're trying to do. You might not be aware what is it you want to tell them. So it's really important when we communicate, we take a moment first and we think about why. Why do I want to speak to him or her? What do I want to accomplish? The objective, right? So this big bubble. Am I trying to set an expectation? Like the brother was saying, what's right, what's wrong? Am I trying to negotiate something with you? You know, Habibi, I know you want to get a driver's license, but we don't have money right now for another car insurance. So you're going to have to be patient. Or you can go get a job, no more than 2 hours a week, and we'll help you out with 50%. So we're negotiating. Or we're resolving a conflict, right? You talked back to your mom the other day, so we're trying to resolve that. Or we're sharing information. Or we're trying to influence the person to do something. You know, take your sister to her game or whatever. Or we're collecting information. We want to know what happened at school. Right? So knowing the objective is so important, because then the words we choose and the style and the mode, like all these other things, can be crafted. Start it again now. So don't rush to communicate with your children if you feel you're not ready. It's totally perfect to take your time. Sometimes it could be 15 minutes. You know, they run up to their room, you take that opportunity to get your thoughts together. Sometimes it could be 15 days. Sometimes it could be months. You know, sometimes you need to monitor the situation day after day, week after week, to see its severity. You know, you have a 16-year-old, you find they got some marijuana in their backpack. Most of us are just gonna, if it's a mom, she's gonna yell at him, right? If it's a dad, he'll probably go tell his wife, look at what he did, go figure it out, right? That's what we're gonna do. But we're gonna try to intervene on the spot. You don't have to. It's either a new thing, and it doesn't matter too much. If it's new, we can, inshallah, resolve it soon. Or it's something that's been going on for a while, so another week or a few days is not gonna make a difference. But that week or few days, that's where you can go talk to the school. Hey, we noticed that this is going on. How's he doing in school? Does he take too many breaks? Does he come late? Does he leave early? Is there any absence? You know, what's his behavior? Is he falling asleep in the back of the class? Teacher might say, I don't know, but now I'll keep an eye on him. I'll pay more attention to him, right? For example. Or I've noticed he's been hanging out with this group of people after school. Or the other day I saw him, you know, down at the, 7-Eleven or whatever after school on my way home. So these are things that can help you craft a better, message or communication. So these are some objectives. The other thing to keep in mind is the attribute of your message. Could be clarity. Is the message clear enough? Did I tell Ahmed clear instructions? I just said, Ahmed, take care of your room. For Ahmed, taking care of his room, it could be taking all his clothes and putting it under the bed. Now it's taken care of. But am I clear, Ahmed, your clothes should go in the closet and your shoes under the bed? That's a clear message, right? Or precision. How precise is my message? Ahmed, your clothes should go on the third thing in the shelf on the closet, and they should be folded. You know, there's a precision here in this, this example maybe is not the best, but there's a difference between clarity of a message, how precise the message is, like the 50%, 100% example we gave, you're always late versus 50% of the time late. That's a precision issue. Clarity is you're late. It's clear what we're talking about. And then accuracy is how correct is the statement to start with. All right? Also depth and breadth. Now we found that the teenager has a smoking problem. Before we go talk to him, we need to be educated about smoking. We need to get pretty deep. This is where depth comes in, about smoking. Because the minute I go talk to him about it, he's going to come up with a list of arguments why smoking is the best thing. So I have to be prepared. I have to understand different points of view. Or I have to understand where are the resources that I could go to, so when these arguments come up, I can quickly leverage these resources. Which mental health facility is available? Or which Muslim psychologist I can access and call? How long would it take to call that place? You don't want to go talk to your kid about getting help, and you engage in a conversation, you negotiate, it takes you 6 hours over 2 weeks, and now they finally agree to go get help. and then you call the doctor and say, yeah, we'll get you in 3 months. You know, your kid is not going to wait 3 months. They're going to go back to the problem, and you're going to have to renegotiate. So it'd be better not to talk to them maybe about getting help until help is going to happen tomorrow, right? So these are all techniques when it comes to your message. What do I want to talk about and the objective? And then how do you talk to people? The medium and the method. Text messaging is a way. Face-to-face is another way. You know, you find a drug problem, you don't text your kid while they're on campus like, what is this that I found in your backpack? You better be home, you know, so we can talk about this. That's not how you address that. That's not the proper medium for that. You wait till they're home, they're safe, because you don't want them to be driving home nervous, or they decide not to come home because they have to deal with this problem, so they go to their friend, and now they're not home to start with, right? So the medium as well. How specialized or generalized is the problem, and then the impact of what I'm going to say. With one person, I can tell them a message, it brings them closer to me. I could say that same message to a different person, it takes them further away from me. So how do I forecast? Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he had the dream of slaughtering Ismail alayhi salam, he had emotional intelligence. He knew his son pretty well. If he had suspicion that his son would reject, he probably wouldn't have gone and told him that this is what I've seen in the dream, what do you think about it? He would just go ahead and execute the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knows it's the truth, and as a prophet, he's not going to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so he's going to do it regardless if Ismail alayhi salam agrees or not. But he's giving Ismail alayhi salam an opportunity to be part of this decision. He's using his emotional intelligence, understanding his son, knowing that his son has been obedient his whole life. He erected the Kaaba with him. You know, he did so many great things. And his response was what? Ya Abi, satajuduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. Inshallah, you'll find me from among the patient people. So he was smart about how to approach Ismail alayhi salam. So same thing here. What's the impact of what we tell our children? Is it going to make them upset on the dinner table and run up to their room? Or are they going to be calm and engaging with us in a discussion? So if you want to take a picture of that, it's kind of a summary, a good, roadmap, inshallah. So talking about communication before we move on, what's a roadmap as a parent we can develop for our children? So one way to communicate when they're little kids, little children, 1, 2-year-old, we can read a story to them before bedtime. A story doesn't have to always be from, the Quran or the Seerah. I mean, it could be a Sahabi story, of course, the stories of the prophets, those stories. Or it could be something simple, like, a farm and it's got a cow and a horse and this and that. And you're communicating and asking them questions. What color was the horse? Oh, it's brown. How big was the cow? It's young, this and that. It's things like that. As they grow up, you're starting to engage in different types of communication. Maybe you're talking to them about sports, about hobbies, about their friends, about your experiences as a child, like the brother was saying. When I was 7, this happened to me. I got my hand stuck in the elevator. When I was 9, my teacher did this because I wasn't listening in class, but I learned a good lesson, and so on. So you can start putting together, if you take this chart, you can put together for yourself a roadmap. At this age, I'm not necessarily going to be very precise, but I'll be clear. And then, at the age of 8 to 10, I'll be more precise. At the age of 7 and 8 and 9, I'm going to set expectations. At the age of 14, I'll start to negotiate, and so on. All right, let's move on, inshallah. Back to the presentation. Okay, so we talked about patience, a little bit of communication. We mentioned the I message in communication. Engagement, of course, examples that were mentioned, understanding their hobbies, showing interest in their friends. Friends are so important. Again, thing that I'm seeing so much in Muslim families, if we have a Muslim gathering, we put our kids on autopilot. Like all the families are gathering somewhere that's a masjid, so we're all in this program, and the kids are somewhere running around, right? Unsupervised. Or we're at someone's house and all the kids are like in the basement or in some room doing whatever they're doing, right? That's not engagement. That's actually a recipe for a disaster 5 years later. So they're 7, when they're 12, that's when trouble starts. And most troubled youth in the Muslim community, it actually happens from Muslim homes. We just take it by granted that, oh, it's Muslim, they're all, but no, they're part of the society, right? And all it takes is just one kid out of 10 who has been exposed to something, and they don't have a strong understanding of the deen, they don't have open communication or trust with their parents, and now this thing just spreads like virus amongst all the kids. And once that happens, now you cannot solve the problem as a family anymore. That's the second problem that we see. You have to solve it as a group of families. And typically what happens, some parents say, no, I'm raising my kids this way. Another group says, or another 2, 3 families say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We have to have a father, one of us, with the boys when they're playing soccer. It's like, no, I trust my kid. I'm not going to do that. If the families don't agree, the kids will actually get even more confused. So it really takes a collaboration. You can't just put youth or children on autopilot, for forever. Yeah, maybe 15 minutes they're playing, that's fine. But if it's becoming a rhythm, that's how we do things. That's the recipe for a disaster. We talked a bit about emotional intelligence, understanding their feelings and our feelings, and not just understanding it, but managing it. And how do you manage their emotions? Usually through communication and engagement, and of course your personal qualities like being patient with them, being honest and sincere, things like that. Coaching is where you kind of teach them by experience. You might not be a subject matter expert in whatever they're doing, but you can guide them. Let's say you have a teenager who likes to fix cars. You don't know anything about cars. You're his mom. But you can coach him on how to fix cars properly. So, did you put on your safety gear? You made sure, there's no little children, your little brothers are not around, these kinds of things. So you're kind of guiding them, not necessarily telling them how to fix the car itself, but guiding them on the process. That first do the safety, then this and that, and so on. Let's move on, inshallah. Okay, we can skip this. All right, let's keep moving, inshallah. Communication, we can skip. Yeah, that's... all right, so we talked about engagement. Let's go move on. All right, okay, emotional intelligence, next slide. Very good. So emotional intelligence, understanding the emotions of other people in a positive way. There is something called positive youth development. Actually, if you go to our website, research.islamicleadership.org, there's a number of literature papers you can scan. Examples are like these. And there's something called positive youth development. It's how do we develop young people from a positive mindset? So instead of telling our teenager, you're always smoking, which is a negative connotation, we would say something like, it looks like you're using ways to relieve you that are not very good for your health. Right? It's the same thing, but a different message. Instead of focusing on the problem of smoking and addiction, we're focusing maybe on his or her strengths that they could use to mitigate that problem. So it's just a different way of looking at things. And that's also part of our youth have so many great things, but sometimes we just focus on the negative. We focus that she doesn't spend enough time with us, or he talks back to his mother, but he might be cutting the grass and helping her with the dishes, so he's doing a lot of great things, but we don't always recognize that. We don't do positive reinforcement, right? And sometimes when we develop a negative habit, it becomes very difficult to get away from it. So yeah, maybe he's talking back to his mom because it was a negative habit that he developed, because maybe that's how he sees his father talking to his wife, right? These are subtle things that kids pick up. So many Muslim kids, they tell me, I'm not going to marry a Muslimah. I was like, why not? Oh, whoa, I don't want to be like my dad. I never see him hugging my mom. Right? That's the impression he gets about a Muslim marriage. Like, they're not really emotional. It's like, okay, they're married, but they're really not married. That's what they, and then on the flip side, at school, he sees all kinds of things. So he's like, I don't want to be like them. Why would I do that? Right? So we do things that they pick up subconsciously, and we're setting certain standards for them. Just like the hadith that we went over earlier, sometimes as adults in the household, we forget to show emotions to our spouse. Honey, thank you for the dinner. That little word can mean a lot to the child when they grow up, and even, as a child respecting their mother. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's go move on. Okay, keep going. All right. I think we can type. Let's stop here for a minute and see what time it is. Are there any questions before we take a short break? Yes.
Should I repeat? Okay. This question from like early on. So when the adolescent kid says, well, mom or dad, I got it, I can do it, I can handle it, no problem. But you know that they can't. I mean, that situation, you really don't trust them because you know that they can't really handle it. Mm-hmm. So how do you approach that?
Okay. So the question is, how do we approach something where the kid thinks they can do it and really they can't? It depends on the severity. So this is where the risk-taking comes into the picture. You want to let them have some risk, but it's calculated risk. So it depends. Are they going to harm themselves or someone else? Then you have to set boundaries. You have to choose the least of two harms. If the answer is no, it could be a lesser thing, but maybe they're going to waste a lot of time in their life, like they'll waste a year of college, for example, or a lot of money. Then you set clear expected outcomes. You educate them. And sometimes you're going to have to let them make that decision, right? And sometimes you're going to be assertive and say no, right? So if I know that my kid, if he drives, he's going to have a crash, and he will lose his life, then of course I won't let him drive, right? But if I'm just worried that he might have a crash, just like anyone else, then I'm here being overprotective. And what's going to happen is it's going to backfire. If he really wants to drive, he's going to take Ahmed's car. So next time he comes to the masjid, hey, yo, can I drive your car home? Oh, sure. And now he doesn't have a driver's license. Or he has a permit and Ahmed is like 18. They get stopped at a traffic light, now he's in trouble with the law, right? So that's where you have to balance the risk. Sometimes when we become overprotective, even with little children, it backfires, right? They get a tantrum, they start, acting up and things like that. So you have to balance it really. Setting expectations also is part of life experience. So when they're younger, if we share with them what life is about and how things happen, if we share stories from society, look at what happened to this person or that person, and they're already watching the internet, YouTube, and things like that. They already know. So you can talk to them about these kinds of things. All right, other questions? All right, so let's take maybe a short 4-minute break, 5-minute break. Inshallah, we'll come back 1:45. It's already 1:45. So maybe 10:55, 10 minutes, inshallah. What should we talk about next? Salah is another thing? Okay. to Afghanistan, where she was incarcerated, and the brothers who there, they would say we would hear her screaming, being tortured. And then she disappeared for a period of time. She got injured somehow. They took her to a military hospital, and they claim that when she was in the bed, she tried to attack a Marine. Who knows, but you know, a weak woman in a bed in a hospital attacking a Marine with gear doesn't make much sense. So anyway, her whole story was documented here in a PDF, about 45 pages, by one of our 17-year-old youth. His name is Adam, and this is available for download. We have another resource here, Hindufa. How many here heard of Hindufa? Okay, just one person. We really need to be more educated about it. I didn't know anything about it till 2019, when a brother from Islamic Indian American Muslim Council reached out, and he said we need to be more aware of this. So we asked a sister in college to write a book on it. She did this during her winter break with the help of 5 or 4 high school youth who did some graphics and stuff. There's actually a copy right here of the book. You can get copies online from Amazon, or you can download it for free from our website here at this link. But it talks about Hindufa as a fascist movement. It's a racist movement in India. It's the one that's behind all the killings of minorities, Muslims and Christians and other groups. And they're basically, think of them like ISIS or Nazis, kind of. But they're getting very involved in the United States. They're teaming up with a Zionist movement to become very entrenched. So something we should be aware of. We had some high schoolers doing little articles on impact of COVID, for example, on youth in high school. If you scroll down a little bit, one brother did some things to clarify Islamic perspective on fighting, terrorism, you know, all that. Because at school, he went to public school, he would get questions by his friends and peers. Even his closest non-Muslim friends, he could feel there's something on their mind. So he wrote these articles, and alhamdulillah, he has good references. If you keep going down. There's a couple of short articles. We do a little bit of work with homelessness. There are quite a bit of homeless Muslim youth from different demographics. They're kids who run away from home, brothers and sisters. There's people who, in our African American community in the inner cities, they sometimes the mom is single with her teenage son. They get evicted. The mother goes to a shelter. The son doesn't have a place to stay. So alhamdulillah, we have a 2-bed dorm where we can host young people. You can go down. So here's a lot of resources that are helpful for parents and teachers. Building identity in youth, 5 skills, what we talked about. There's a whole paper you can download. How to mentor, what is mentoring, suicide amongst young Muslims. I don't know if you know, but unfortunately, suicide amongst the Muslim youth is the 2nd highest in the country. Native Americans have the highest suicide rate. It's close to 40%. It's staggering, scary. Muslim youth, it's alhamdulillah lower than that, but it's the highest right after that. And within faith groups, I think it's the highest, followed by some denomination of Christianity. If we keep going down, keep going. Positive youth development. So that's something you might want to look at. There are 15 constructs that are important for a young person to develop over their life. Emotional well-being, feeling safe, social interaction skills, etc. So you can download the paper and look at it. Gender identity in Islam. Those of you who were here yesterday, the second khutbah, we talked a little bit about that. But again, what does Islam say about genders, and so forth? These are local things in Maryland. So you can get, inshallah, more resources online. Download all these are free, inshallah. All right, let's watch a quick video that some youth did years ago that is a reflection of real life, everyday school, especially those who go to public school, and even in sometimes some Islamic schools. Make sure the volume is up. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello to you too, laddie.
These amazing LED light bulbs.
This happens every take his backpack, whatever, it happens sometimes even amongst sisters or girls as well. But obviously, if you're Muslim, and then maybe you're coming from a national origin, not from this country, you're first, second generation, especially refugees, youth who came here in middle school, that's a big transition for them, just to figure out how to deal with their peers and so forth. So of course it puts a lot of challenges on them, right? So as parents, it's really important that we understand what our children go through. I mean, we're doing a lot of, alhamdulillah, great work at home, but not having the full picture also keeps us a little bit disconnected, right? So what does a typical youth go to? And of course, school districts are different. Some are more, diverse, some are not, and so forth. But typically, they get just a sense of they're different, right? I'm wearing hijab, everyone else is not. Maybe my school has 10 other Muslim girls, and 8 of them are not wearing hijab. But me and this other girl, we're the only 2 wearing hijab. That in itself, these 2 sisters, they stand out in a school that has 1,200 people. That's stress, even if no one is talking to them negatively about their hijab. Just the fact that there are 2 people walking in the school with a headscarf on. Now, of course, if someone passes by and says, oh, you got a rag on your head today. Now, that's extra stress. Or someone saying, why are you wearing this? You have cancer? You lost your hair? I mean, I know one of my daughters, that comment was made to her when she was in 5th grade, and she took off her hijab because of that. We went and talked to the principal, said, this happened, and she's hurt by it. So he was very understanding. He called the other girl, he taught her that this is not, talked to her parents, and they were understanding, alhamdulillah, and it was resolved. But we had to go to the principal. So if we didn't know about this, and of course our daughter did not tell us when it happened, like we found out maybe a month later. It's like, why did you take off your hijab? I mean, she was young, so we were okay with that. Alhamdulillah, she put it on later when she was in 8th grade. But the point is, she went through the experience, she dealt with it internally, never told her parents, and for all we know, it was one of those days where they come in, they throw their backpack, and they just don't talk to you, or they talk back to you, right? So here's where you want to record it. What's useful is create a log, spreadsheet or a piece of paper that you keep for yourself, and write down the date. December 2nd, so-and-so came back from school, seemed very unhappy, and just put it there. A week later, you see something else. Then you can start to see a pattern. You can start to understand what's going on. Or you can come back a month later, it's like, hey, I remember one day you came back and you weren't happy. They'll be probably more open to talk about it a month later than the day of. So that's where patience comes in. So that's one example, very simple thing with sisters. Right, with brothers, they also feel inferior. Maybe if you're in a predominantly white district, all the boys are white, maybe they're affluent, they have certain privileges their parents are giving them. They might be driving at the age of 14, 15 without even a license. And now your kid obviously is not driving, but he's brown or black or whatever. He's praying Dhuhr, in the middle of school, going somewhere to pray. He's, again, an anomaly compared to the rest of the school, right? So he has to try to fit in. I remember one brother, he was 14. He was in a science lab experimenting, and a kid told him, you're Bin Laden or something like that. So he just brushed it off because he didn't know what to do. But that kid had problems, like he would smoke weed. He was smoking since 12. And then when he was 15, he got really aggressive with smoking. He started selling and buying, and like it was a business. He would hide his stuff in the woods and whatnot. And then one day, that kid from 2 years ago was going home, He stopped him with a knife, and he beat him up. So the cops came, the school was involved, you know, they had assault charges against the boy. And I said, why do you do that to him? He said, because he called me a terrorist 2 years ago. 2 years ago, right? So he kept it inside, he never told anyone about it. And sometimes these things could evolve. So these are things that kids go through every day. Now, sometimes they're also bullied by their own teachers. And subhanAllah, this can even happen sometimes in Muslim schools. We, even as a community, as parents, sometimes we don't recognize this. Your daughter is 18, and she comes home, hey mama, there's this brother in the masjid who seems interested to know you guys. And she's, okay, where's he from? Oh, he's from Egypt. No, but we're from India. No, it won't work. Just forget it. Right? And that automatically is internal, prejudice, racism within our community. Same thing happens between us and other people. So these types of things put stress on our children, right? Create, of course, problems and things like that. So these are some of the everyday things that they go through. Now with LGBT, some school districts are very open with this issue, to the point where parents, I don't know if you've seen online some of these videos, but parents tell their children, their students, what their orientation is or what their philosophy about life has nothing to do with the subject being taught. Actually, do you still have the website open? Sorry, I'm jumping from one place to another. So if you go to resources, where is it? Go under services. Okay, just open a new browser. You type gender. So gender.islamicleadership.org is a gender identity resource center we started in February. Alhamdulillah, the organization has been involved in this issue since 2008. We've been working with some churches and other groups that understand the concept of marriage. But in this year, we really started this resource center. So you scroll down, there's some talks and khutbahs. This was a talk we gave with a group called Strong Support in England. Basically, they provide a safe haven for people who are suffering from same-gender attraction who want counseling. I don't know if you know, but in the United States, there are a number of states that counseling is not allowed. If you're under 18, you have same-gender attraction, your parents are not allowed to help you. You can't go to a therapist. Your religious director, like your imam or rabbi or pastor, cannot counsel you either. It's against the law. The first state to pass this law was California in 2008, and it just passed in Maryland in 2018. But now there's close to 14 or 20 states that do not allow that, and some countries as well. So that's a problem in itself. If you go down, there's a paper here, some other talks. Keep going down. A couple of things for Sheikh Yasser. This is a good video to watch also. Keep going. More. A little bit more. Okay. Sometimes YouTube takes these videos off because they're considered non-inclusive. But this is not our video, but it's another, it's a video that was broadcast, I think, on a Canadian news channel at a university, where they were forcing a professor, he's not Muslim, to use pronouns when he's teaching or talking. And he said, you can't intervene with my right to speak freely. There was a big debate, but obviously they took the video away. This video, this brother Daniel, he exposes the LGBT agenda. And it's an agenda, they have a manifesto that was published, I believe in the 60s or so, to transform America into, a different type of society, because they were able to do that in Europe. Prior to that, America was still a little more religious. And now the only group in the world that's still clear on what's what is the Muslim Ummah. So that's where the focus right now is. So that's a good video also to watch. Okay, and then Sheikh Omar has another thing. So that's a good resource also, inshallah, to look at. But again, if your son or daughter goes to public school, and I think in Detroit there was a big uproar very recently about this issue, right? And the sad part is the people who are promoting this, some of them are Muslim, or these Muslim names. So, we got to understand what's happening around us. Tfaddal, akhi.
I was going to just ask about those videos. So who's the audience for those videos? Are they our children or us?
I would say 15 or 14 and above. Yeah. The first very top video, actually I ran it with my high school kids in Maryland, and it was an hour, and you can drop a pin and you would hear it. They were so attentive. And actually, for 2 weeks after that, some of them would say, can we talk about those people in the video in the first, first 2 weeks ago? So there's a lot of questions on their mind. But good question. Actually, in middle school, I don't know about Michigan, but most states, around grade 7, part of their health curriculum, they'll teach them sexual education. And most states now, they teach, this as part of that. So I wouldn't, if your child is 11 or 12, I would start talking to them about this stuff. So it could help the parent figure out how to convey the message. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, any other questions before we move on? Okay, so one question came up with salah. How do we encourage our children to love to pray? So let's get some ideas from the audience, inshallah. Yes, sister.
By informing them the benefits of why you should pray. So the foundation of fearing Allah is the first. We have to teach them so that they have to pray and start praying as much as very young age.
I think it's off.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Just bring it closer.
So I with my kids, I recommend or I suggest that they have to pray because there are benefits and rewards, blessings if you pray. And then as a parents, we should be like the role model. So we have to be like the first foundation to teach them that they have to pray at this point.
Okay. So let's start thinking of a roadmap. When they're from not zero, maybe from 1 to 3, what could we do as a parent to encourage them to pray? From age 1 to age 3.
Modeling, we just pray, and then after the prayer, if we see them around, we give them a big hug with a big smile or something really exciting for the baby or for the child to feel that after a prayer something great happens to me after I see my parent pray.
MashaAllah, perfect. Okay.
And then
anything else?
3 to 6 or 7, something like that, start explaining why we pray, that it's something good for us.
Okay, before we get to 6 and 7, let's focus on 1 to 3. So 1 to 3, like the sister said, is to model the prayer, to show them, right? So in order to do that, you want to make sure they pray with you. They're next to you, right? Now, they're not necessarily going to pray correctly, but they're going to copy you. You stand up, they'll stand up. They might play, they might come in front of you, jump on your shoulder. That's all good. Sometimes we just ignore to bring them with us because they're not mukallaf, they're not accountable yet. We know that, and they're still young. So we just decide to pray by ourselves. So we want to exert that extra effort, be a little patient to go get them and have them next to us so they can, like the sister is saying, to copy us. Right? Now they start to copy us. Right? If we're praying at home, they'll be with us. If we're going to the masjid, if the brother's going to the masjid, you want to take them with you. Right? If you just do it at home, then now we're sending a subtle message that prayer's at home, but I don't have to go to the masjid. So you want to be consistent. All right, so that's 1 to 3. What else can we do in that age range? MashaAllah, beautiful idea. Atfaddal.
So anything that will link them to prayer, like they should have their own tools for prayer. Carving, they can have a scarf as a girls, they can have, whatever, that Young people should.
Okay, very good. So bring them like a prayer kit, a carpet, a rug for them, a scarf for the sister. Just like we get them toys, get them something that belongs to them. They take care of it, they wash it, they know where it is, and so forth, so that they can feel an attachment to that thing. So that's a couple of things we could do. Any other ideas?
I think the kids from the age 1 or less than 2, they like to be held and hugged. So one other suggestion is to hold them while you are praying. So you're holding them, in the standing and ruku. When you go to sujud, you put them down, and you cover them like. They probably may like it because you are giving a enclosing, a comforting aspect of it. They may not realize what it is, but since you're holding them most of the time in that 1 year, 1.5 year age group, they may like that.
Okay, mashallah. You can, if they're still, crawling or young 1 year old, you can hold them. If they come try to be picked up, you can pick them up. And we know, of course, Prophet ﷺ used to do that with his grandchildren, right? They would crawl on his back. Okay, what else can we do if they're that young and maybe we're praying at the masjid?
Yeah, so I would like to share our experience. So what we do, we have an azan clock at home. So it gives a 5-time azan. Whenever azan rings, so we ask from our kids that, Allah is going on, you have to stop everything. Once it's done, so now I'm looking my daughter, she's 4, whenever azan comes, she said, Dad, stop whatever we are doing. So I go for wuzu, and then she comes, we have to open the rug, and she also has a small rug. Sometimes she prays, sometimes she doesn't. And little 1.5 year, sometimes he does, sometimes they don't. So the thing is from when they are very small, we have to say, we have to encourage them. We don't have to force them. We say, oh, this is the salah time. Let's go and do this thing. And now, slowly, they will be used to of that. Salah is like habit. When we do habit, now it is our habit that we have to do these 5 times in a day. When they develop this habit, then when they grow, this habit will not go away. So we have to. Other thing is the behavior of the kid is that, you do what they see, they will do like you, and slowly they will absorb in their brain. Once it is absorbed, then it will not go away from their brain. So we have to put effort. Sometimes we are, we all are human beings. Sometimes we are tired, come home from work, we are tired, we cannot do that. But we have to put effort. So it's a big effort. It's not a one day, it's an everyday effort.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair for sharing. So creating an atmosphere that it's a serious thing. Just like when we eat. We have 3 times a day usually that we eat. We say, hey guys, food is ready, or come, let's eat. We put emphasis on finishing our food. Same thing. We're creating that special moment 5 times a day. If they're too young, maybe they're missing out on Fajr if they're not up. But even if they're young, 3, you can, and this is where sleeping comes into the picture. If they sleep the night before at 9, then they probably can get up at 5 or 6 and they won't be, too fatigued. But of course, we don't have to pressure them for that. But at least they can see the other 3 or 4 prayers that there's something serious going on. We're stopping everything, to do that. All right, so if we were to draw a picture of a roadmap from, 1 to 3, that's kind of what we would do, those 3, 4 ideas. All right, what else can we do from 4 to, let's say, 6? So that's like the pre-kindergarten, kindergarten. What other ideas can we do? Okay, share more.
We have to teach them at that age they are capable of learning how to pray, proper prayer, and what the prayer stands for. What does it mean? Why we pray? We have to teach these things at that age.
Okay, so why? Why is a very important question. Why do we pray? So now here we're introducing the concept of Allah, the Lord, a creator. He's given us so much. So as a way to show gratitude, We pray to Him, we ask for help, we have limitations, and you can start talking about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the Lord. Making sense that, look at the mountain, look at the sky, yesterday it rained, look at this bird, things they can understand, and there's a Lord who created this. They might not yet understand Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the worship part, but they can understand probably the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. So we single Allah by His actions. That could be, a key theme at the age of 3, for example. Okay, what else can we do? Practical things to make them love prayer a little bit more. There's the mic here.
It just happened yesterday. My grandson was he was like standing in front of me, like his back. He wanted to lead it backward, and I had to explain why that we pray towards one direction, that away there is the Qibla, and that's where we ourselves. So he said, so is that where Allah lives? And then said, that's where a lot of the Muslims go, and that Allah wants us to direct ourselves. But it was interesting. And then he said, but there is a big tower by the Kaaba. Are we praying to the tower or are we praying to the Kaaba? I said to the Kaaba, of course. He said, oh, but it should be the biggest. I said, who told you that? I said, I just saw the picture, and I saw the big tower. So that just happened yesterday, and I'm still thinking and reflecting on the questions and the answer that happened there.
SubhanAllah, because they're young, curious, and common sense, that out of respect, it should be the biggest thing. In DC, there's a law. No building can be higher than the Capitol, the US Capitol. That's why DC doesn't have any high rises. The tallest building is like 12 stories. The height cannot be higher than the Capitol to respect the Capitol. So in my opinion, it was a big mistake to do such a tower because like a child, how old is he? 5, yeah. He's like, why is this big thing not what we're praying to, right? But, aside, of course, there's nothing in the deen that restricts that, but it's just, common sense etiquettes. But yeah, so that's, as we see, a 5-year-old is starting to ask questions like, where is Allah? Is that where He is? So we can start to introduce some of His asma and sifat. Who is Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why do we pray to Him? The why question and so forth. All right, good. Now, what else can we do? Remember, at that age, they're starting to develop some social skills. So how can we embed prayer as part of who they are?
We can bring them to masjid, tell them that, hey, we can meet your friends over there and maybe play at the gym, that way we can encourage them.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. So that's when you want to start making arrangements with other parents. I'll bring Muhammad tomorrow for Fajr. It's Saturday. Can you bring your son? Okay. They meet and then they can pray together, with the jama'ah or on their own. And then we can tie it into some fun activity afterwards. They can eat cookies or play, or if there's a playground, they can go outside together. So now in their mind, they're starting to connect prayer, not just something that we do at home, but it's also something other homes do. And we do it together, and it's fun. And I want to go to this masjid where I can play and eat cookies and get on the slide or, play soccer or basketball in the gym, whatever. Right? And that's where the school and the masjid can come into play, is maybe we can arrange, hey, after Fajr, can we use the gym and one of the parents or two of the parents will supervise and, be with the children because maybe the masjid doesn't have the resources to have people, there. So that's where, again, the collaboration comes into the picture. And the young person is starting to see, this is not just something that dad and mom are telling me, but it's the norm of my community. My whole community is taking this thing pretty seriously, So that's the age of kindergarten, right? Now they're starting to go to kindergarten. If it's an Islamic kindergarten, then inshallah they're probably praying at school. They're teaching them al-Fatiha, and so forth, maybe parts of the tashahhud, and so on. If they're not going to Islamic school or Islamic kindergarten, then they're just going to regular kindergarten. There's going to be more, of course, work at home to teach them these things, right? Or to bring them to a school, program at the masjid for their age on the weekend. So probably by 7, just like now they know how to read and write English, they need to read and write the Fatiha and Tashahhud, understand their meanings. Not a scholar, but this is a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you, and Allah is saying that you've glorified Him and He's responding to you. And the other one is a conversation also between the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel alayhi salam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we explain it in the form of the story. And now there are 7 or 6, you're talking to them about Isra and Mi'raj, and as a young child they're going to be curious, like, how did he go so fast and up and this and right? So you can start introducing them to Mecca, Medina, Mecca and Quds, Medina as well, and the whole heavens and so forth. So it's part of our identity. It's not a task, right? Quite often we pray, otherwise you go to hellfire. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't be happy with you. No, let's try to, this is where the positive youth development comes into the picture. Rather than say, pray so you don't go to the hellfire, you say, pray so you can gain Allah's pleasure. Hellfire would come, but maybe, a little later, after they understand the why. Now you understood the why, and if you don't do it, there's a consequence of repercussion. All right, repercussion. Now we're at the age 7. Let's say from 8 to 9. So Sister, I know you had some other things you wanted to share. So there's 2nd, 3rd grade.
I think at this stage, just talking more about what is good for them, what do they get out of it, and then make sure that wherever you go, like when you're on a trips, that to explain that this across geographies, we still do the prayer. If they are in public school, talk with the principal, talk with the teachers that at certain times might needs a break to go and do the prayer, and arrange for a space for them. They feel that they can be in a non-Muslim environment for doing that. Or with their friends, they come over, their friends come over, whatever, you encourage that peer support. Mm-hmm. So that's the age when they are doing more friendships, more going to places, different places. So the consistency needs to be important across geography.
Jazakumullah khairan. Okay, so putting it in our everyday life, basically, is the summary. And I like the idea of the sister is if they go to public school, to talk to the school about this. Usually we wait till middle school to do that. So when there's 6th grade, 7th grade, we go talk to the school, or we send a note that our son or daughter needs to pray Dhuhr. Can they use the media center? Which is fine to do it with the middle school, but we lost 5 years already in the elementary level, and the kid themselves are not so bought into the idea. So if the school gives them trouble to find that media, they're just going to say, it's fine, don't worry about it, right? So we want the sister's idea about when they're in 1st grade, you go talk to their teacher or school, say, they need to pray. It's not an obligation upon them, maybe because they're not 10 yet, but it's highly recommended. So we really appreciate if we can have, a place for them to do it at this time. The benefit is that the kid understands it's part of their identity. By the time they get to middle school, it's a given. I've been doing this for 5 years in elementary school, and now it's not difficult for me to practice that. I think there's a question or a comment in the back.
So one of most important thing we have here in the Islamic Center is we have some sports activity during in between prayer times. So we have daily activity, we have taekwondo classes, we have basketball, we have soccer. So the kid come and start the practice. When they hear adhan, they join the salah. Then when they finish, they continue. So this will teach them of course, sports and skills, and also teach them how to get engaged in the Muslim community, how to be kind of showing Islamic manners outside even the Islamic Center when they play with other teams. So having this sports activity in between prayer times is really helpful, and I think many kids are attending now, so it's really important for them. They still be connected to the Islamic Center as well.
MashaAllah. So embedding it as part of their activities before or after, so they come, they play together, then they pray afterwards or before. It's part of their daily routine is important. And what you want to do is embed the concept of gratitude within the discussion. Why are we praying? Part of it is gratitude, showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because He deserves to be worshipped, now we start to talk about Tawheed, al-Uluhiyya, the Ibadah. At the age of maybe 7, 6 to 8, they should grasp that. So the younger age, 3 to 5, the Lordship, the creation, there's only one God, one Allah. And now a little older, they start to understand because He deserves this, He did all of this, now it's our obligation. That's how we are different than other people. We single Him by our actions. And because we're grateful people, we pray to Him. And the prayer starts with what? Alhamdulillah. All praises and gratitude is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So embedding this whole concept of gratitude in the reason of why we pray. And now we're being grateful so Allah can give us more. And brother mentioned an example of playing sports. After the game, look guys or sisters, this health that you have, the ability to run around, to throw the ball, to do this, where did it come from? It came from the Lord, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now we're going to go pray to thank Him, for this bounty. So now they're at this age, they know some Quran inshallah, so they can recite in their prayer, they understand the Fatiha, they understand Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, appropriate for their age. Now they're starting to get into the pre-teen. They're 10 through 12. How can we encourage them to pray at this point?
I think we need to embed the concept of responsibility and leadership. So having them like, okay, you can lead your little brother now, or the oldest male in the house leads the prayer of that time. So something like that will encourage them. And kids like to be responsible anyway and feel like the man of the house. So,
MashaAllah, beautiful idea. So giving them responsibility to lead other people. If they know good, decent amount of Quran, they can recite it properly. They can even lead their father, once in a while to give them that also sense of, leadership and how important Salah is, and they're good at it, and so forth. What else can we start to communicate to them when it comes to Salah? So Salah is very unique than all other acts of Sharia. The uniqueness is the Prophet ﷺ went himself to the seventh heaven to receive it. It did not come down to him. He had to go and get it. It's a gift. And as we know, it was 50 times, and Musa ﷺ advised them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought it down to 5, and everyone has words of 10 and so on, right? So if we communicate to the children, now they have more appreciation for things in life, they can think more critically, that Salah is not just an obligation, it's actually a gift. It's your ticket to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you're 12, you're 10, you're going to start to face problems in life that you're not going to be able to solve yourself. Not even your parents can help you in every problem. The only one who can help us all in our problems is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the beautiful passport that we have to connect with the Creator of the heavens and the earth. You can do it 5 times a day or even more at night on your own, whatever you want to do. So giving that other perspective of that it's a gift, and now those who reject the gift, grateful, they might get punished as well for missing out on this gift if they're intentionally, missing it out, because they're showing that they're not grateful. Then they don't really believe in this concept of lordship that we've been telling them about for a number of years.
So it's sister talk about a good idea, sometime allowing the kids to lead the prayer. What is the right, let's say, age for the kids? We tried it sometimes, but we were not sure if our kid is young enough to really do that.
You could do it at any age. So if they're 3, let's say there's 7 kids together, they're all 3 to 4 year olds. You can take the oldest more responsible one and say, hey, lead the group, right? That's fine. I mean, they're not accountable yet, but for them it's to practice, right? But you won't want a child to lead a group of adults unless they can understand what they're really doing, right? So maybe 12, I would say, 10. It depends. Some children memorize the Quran at a young age, at 12 or 14. Then if he memorizes half the Quran at 12, why can't he lead the whole congregation, right? In our masajid, we have 16 and 18-year-olds leading the entire masjid, and even the imam would be standing behind them. So there's really no age. It depends on their maturity. Do they understand what they're reciting? Are they going to be responsible in the prayer? Are they going to start laughing? Those kinds of things. Now, speaking about that, and the sister, may Allah reward her, reminded me about this concept. We have a program called Halaliya where it's more social interaction for the youth. It's high school and middle school age. They come, mix, on a Friday night, eat pizza, have a short halaqah. Sometimes they do sleepovers. And over the years, it evolved, and they would start inviting their non-Muslim friends from school. And before that happened, we would ask them, someone, make the adhan. And they start running around. These 13, 12-year-olds, middle schoolers. They're shy. They don't want to make adhan or iqama. They run out of the room, things like that. When they started bringing their friends, one of the boys, he was a Christian, he said, what are you guys doing? This is very disrespectful. When I go to church, we sit quietly. We can't do what you guys are doing, laughing and doing what you're doing. So all the Muslim boys felt very embarrassed. And then one of them went up and did that then. And then after that, they became more courageous. So bringing in an outside perspective that reinforces what we're talking about actually could help them in their identity, especially at the middle school age, because now they're more exposed to society. And now they're starting to think, all this stuff my parents have been telling me, the other families are doing, my masjid is doing, no one else is doing it. So, they're trying to reconcile that. And if they hear a third group that's saying, yeah, I mean, marriage is a male and a female only, that reinforces an Islamic concept. Or we also pray in a different way, of course, but when we pray, we're respectful. So this whole concept of a prayer that is a very important thing and has to be respected is reinforced, right? And of course, they have to understand the difference between Islam and other ways of life. But having that reinforcement from an outsider point of view, especially if it's a peer, is sometimes quite often very positive. All right, so now they're about middle school age. What else can we do to help them love prayer and want to do it more?
My father prays, but then he disrespects my mother. Why should I follow him? I'm not going to be someone to follow this kind of examples. He's a hypocrite or something. So we have to really, really be careful about how we portray ourselves. We have to self-develop ourselves, our own conduct as a Muslim before good.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I hear that a lot from young brothers. They say, why should I pray? He doesn't get up for Fajr, talking about their father, right? So his father sleeps till 7 or whenever he gets up and prays, late. So why would I pray on time, right? He's not sincere about the prayer. Another common thing we see sometimes is parents picking up their kids from weekend school at the time of Dhuhr, and they don't go in to pray, whether it's a common time or not. So we're sending a message that weekend school is important and prayer is less important, right? Which is really, we're taking them to weekend school so they can pray, right? So we're kind of sending a wrong message. So if the adhan has come in, we should come in and pray with our kids, even if the masjid didn't do the iqamah yet. If it's not prayer time, but it's about to be, like in 20 minutes and we have to leave, that's fine. But then we explain to them. We don't want them to be curious and figure out things on their own, and like the sister said, reach a speculation or a thought that is not incorrect. Say, Muhammad, it's still 20 minutes until adhan. It's not time for adhan yet. So we can actually, it's okay to leave, and we'll pray together at home because we have to do something and the time is short or whatever. So we don't want to miss asr. So you kind of explaining to them why it's okay that you came, picked them up, and left. But if it's adhan time, you want to say, okay, listen, it's already time of adhan. It's not right that we're at the masjid and not pray. So we're going to go inside, pray together, and then we can leave afterwards. Right? And then you can sometimes use hypothetical examples. Imagine if you invited your friend over, he came all the way to your doorstep, and then he walked away. How are you going to feel? That's basically what we're doing. We went to the masjid, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just went home. We didn't pray. Right? It's disrespecting the masjid. We're not taking this seriously. It's like we're dropping by and moving out. So now they're young adults pretty much, 14 to 17. Now what would we do from that age, 14 to 20 or so? What can we do to keep them excited about prayer? Say that again?
We pray that they continue to pray.
Absolutely. So we always make dua. There's many beautiful du'as in the Quran. Right? Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنَ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةٌ مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Right? So constantly making dua for them. That's of course very important. That's the first step. But what else can we do for them to continue to pray? Okay, so you say, we're going to, depending on how the family does it, some people pray right at the time of adhan. Sometimes they wait a little bit. But continuing that pattern, not missing out. Sometimes as they grow, they're going to start to miss out. They're busy with their homework. They're not paying attention. So you remind them, but with gentleness. Now, this is where emotional intelligence kicks in. You're noticing that you're reminding, they're coming, but they're not happy about it. So after you pray together, did we interrupt you in your middle of your homework? Would it be better if we push it back 15 minutes? Would it be better if we pray in the living room instead of here, or if we do it differently? Right? So you want to start to understand where's the inconvenience coming from. Or maybe they were busy with their phones, right? Maybe they were talking to their friend, whatever it is. And now you're going to start to choose the least of the two harms. Meaning you might need to back off to keep them praying. And maybe they're not going to continue praying Jama'ah with you, but they'll pray in their room. And maybe that's okay. Because if we put too much pressure to continue having them pray with us, they might stop altogether. Right? So this is where emotional intelligence comes into the picture. We all know our kids the best. Like the example we gave before. Nuh alayhi salam knew his son. The earth is about to drown. It's like, listen, there's no games here. You either jump on the ship or you're done. And he's like, I'm going to go to a mountain. It's not going to work. Jump on the ship, right? So same thing, you're going to set some expectations. We're going to be praying Maghrib, 5 minutes after the adhan. It's short time. We want to pray it on time. So after dinner, we're going to pray together, right? And now the expectation is set. People are expected to come. If we notice a pattern, they're coming late, they're not coming, we want to start analyzing, like we talked about earlier, give ourselves some time. If it's a new behavior, I've seen families, the son has been going to weekend school every Sunday. He prays with his father every of the 5 prayers. He wakes him up for Fajr. He's standing next to him. He's praying. And 2 months before he turns 18, he says, don't ever wake me up again. I'm not praying with you. It's like literally day and night. Right? But there must have been some symptoms or signs of inconvenience that this kid doesn't want to pray prior to that date. It just, the reaction happens instantaneously, literally night and day. but it's been building up for years, right? So that's where we have to be emotionally intelligent across the years. If you start to see there's lack of interest, a lot of kids, they just go with the flow. They kind of get peace of mind, so their parents don't nag them about it, don't talk to them about it, and so forth, right? So you want to really make sure that your son or daughter is doing what they're doing because they're convinced about it. As long as they're convinced, as they start to approach 13, 14, you need to give them some space. Treat them as an adult. Treat them as your spouse. If your spouse is not going to pray, khalas, their spouse is not going to pray, right? You can advise them later. But when we start nagging them, yelling at them, calling them, hey, come down, or come over here, you're too late, we're waiting for you, those kinds of things, then that becomes more of a deterrent. Right? So emotional intelligence is important. We don't want to have that surprise element where all of a sudden one day they're saying, I'm not praying, and then the father is like very surprised. It's a shock. So reaction is, what do you mean? You're just not going to pray? How you've been praying yesterday? It's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not convinced. And then, arguments happen, friction, and usually they leave the house after that.
I just wanted to follow up on that because you said, okay, thank you. So you said something about like if they don't want to pray or if they pray by themselves, that's okay to like let them be. Which I agree, but then there's the concern of like if there is younger children in the house and we are trying to establish this, we pray together as a family, and then you have a teenager who continuously like chooses to pray by himself or pray like at his own time, then it becomes really difficult to explain to the younger ones why so-and-so is not praying with us. Or can I just pray by myself then? Like, is that okay? So like certain things have to be established and we have to be strict about it, I feel like, instead of being flexible.
Right. So it's all about expectation setting, right? So for example, at a certain age, sisters might not pray. And we'll have to explain to their siblings why she's not praying or fasting Ramadan and so forth. So similarly, your brother, he's older now. He's going to take some more responsibility. And now he's going to be rewarded or punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he's an independent person to some degree. And it's his choice. And you also, at one point in your life, are going to have to make choices. So explaining that 17 is different than 15 than 9, and so forth. It's just normal progression. Someone will get a driver's license before someone else. Someone will go to school or college before someone else. But we can't escape that fact.
I like the thing you said earlier, that something happened. There must be something happened that changed the child from waking up to Fajr or praying with us, which is brought and memory to me, which is like the competition that's between the kids also, and that drives them. If you have one kid that really prays all the time and he's good, and that if he's bullying his brother or telling him, hey, you did not do this and do that, that trigger also from them, like they won't feel the passion, or they won't feel that they're good enough as much as their older brother and things like that. That's actually a factor that's you need to look at.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair. So you mentioned a number of things. You mentioned bullying, for example. That is something that has to be addressed from the get-go, right? Like, it's not okay to bully your brother. So, if they're bullying each other, or one is bullying the other, it happened at 7 and 5, 9 and 7, 11 and 9, etc., right? But now it's getting to a point at 13, the one who's being bullied is really unhappy about it. I knew a kid, he was 13, he was going to kill himself because his older brother bullies him at school, at home, and so forth. And the older one just taking it so lightly. And like you said, he calls him like, oh, you're a girl, you're a wuss, you're whatever, right? Calls him names and so forth. So that's where the parent has to set expectations at a younger age. You can't talk to your brother like that. You have to respect. You guys can play together, but you cannot disrespect each other. It's okay to feel angry and sad, but your brother does not need to suffer from your feelings. You can go into your room and feel sad as you want. You can come talk to dad or mom, but you cannot bring your problems onto other people. So that's something that needs to be established, right? And then as they grow, you're monitoring their reactions. Do they really buy into that idea that you taught them when they're 4 or 5? Do they really understand it and believe in it? Or they're just nodding their head, right? As a parent, we can tell. We can, after a while, tell, is my child sincere with me? Is he fearful from me? Or is he trusting and open enough to tell me I don't want to pray? You as a parent would rather hear from your 9 or 10-year-old, I don't want to pray, than him or her praying with you, pretending that they're the sweetheart listening to you and they really believe in what you're preaching them, right? So if we put reasoning behind all this from a younger age, the tawheed, all these things we've talked about earlier, inshallah, with Allah's will, it would make sense to them and, they would follow through. And of course, at the end of the day, guidance is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to remember, we don't control any results. We're just doing the best we can based on our deen and what we've been taught and learning, from the seerah and the books and so forth. And the results are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have examples of prophets who their wives were not believers, right? Or their children were not believers. Or their fathers or parents or uncles were not believers. So as Allah says in the Quran, you don't guide whoever you will, or you wish, or you love. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah guides whoever He loves. Right? So for some of us, we would do everything that's right to the best of our ability, but the outcome might not be what we like to see. And that doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever either. So many times, people deviate a little bit and they come back to the right path. And that's still part of our test. And our, understanding of tawheed, that we recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can bring them back. Right? So it's all what we can do the best. And your children, they're all different. They're still in the same family. You might have twins that they're very different than each other.
Somewhere along the way, when we are raising our children as a family, we have to teach them why they are praying and the sincerity of the prayer. If the child is praying because he's fearful of you, if you tell them, hey, if you pray because of that, your prayer is not. It doesn't mean anything. You have to pray because for you. So they have to take that ownership instead of you forcing them. They have to learn somewhere along the way, knowing the tawheed and, all the tools that they need to have so that they pray because for themselves, not because they're fearful of you. I think that's really crucial along the way for them to learn.
No. Yeah, the intention is so important. Teaching them the idea of sincerity and niyyah, intention, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ from a young age is very important. That you want to do a good quality job. Right? So a sloppy job is not going to hold together. Whatever it is, that sloppy job. If you want to fix a car and you do a quick job, the car will break down. Same thing with your prayers. They're not going to be strong or sound or accepted. Okay, so that was a little bit on prayer. How are we doing time? What time is it? Do we have it? 12? Oh, subhanAllah. Okay, so that was the first point here. Gender identity, how do we talk about that issue or gender relations in general with our youth? The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith that's very famous, he said, يَا مَعْشَرَ الشَّبَابِ مَنْ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمَ الْبَاءَ فَلْيَتَزَوَّجْ. O young people, whoever can afford to get married, shall he, embark on this journey. Whoever cannot, then he can fast. It is a protection for him and or her. Of course, the natural fitrah, the inclination, the way human beings are created, at a certain age, I don't know if this is making an echo or, we grow, we start to have emotions towards other people, but more importantly, we start to think about the future. We start to have aspirations and things that we want to accomplish in life, especially, the brothers, and we want a person, a partner, to be part of that. We're looking for someone to bounce off ideas. We're looking for someone to start a journey with. That's human nature, right? And that usually starts around the age of 16, 17. And many of us, most of us, do not nurture that, right? I want you to imagine if your 60-year-old walks into today at home and says, Mom, there's a sister at the masjid that I'd like you to meet. What would your reaction be? Say that again? Do you want the mic? You'd be surprised? Yeah. Okay. So what would you do? Is he a boy or a girl? Okay. So he comes to you and says that there's a sister in the masjid that I'd like you to meet. Okay, mashallah.
Yeah, for me, I'll just say, okay, let me see her, or let me know her parents.
Okay.
Parents where she came from, and I'll do some investigation, as a mom. So, what is her background? What is her dreams? What is her goal in the life? So
Okay.
just getting to know.
Okay.
I will not definitely say no. Just get to know.
Good. Okay. So you're receptive to meet the sister, right? You want to maybe not tell him about the investigation and yeah, that's for you. Yeah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Right. But most parents are not going to do that. Most parents will become very protective, right? He's 16. He's still in 11th grade. He's got to get his SATs and his college apps, and he's thinking about some sister in the community. This is going to be a big distraction. So, no, Muhammad, this is not the time. You need to focus on your school, right? There are parents in the community that would do that. I know, sometimes we would do that, right? So how do we reconcile that? How do we reconcile that issue? I mean, we want them to focus on SATs and go to college and finish high school, right? But now they're bringing up a topic that we were not expected to discuss or talk about or even think of.
Honestly, actually, me and my husband, like, we encourage our kids. We have this decision that we have, I think, or we believe that maybe they have to marry at a very young age. Not really like 15, 17, but we are preparing them to become like an adult. Because, of course, in the future, they might become parents. And how they are going to raise their kids in the future. So at a very young age, we are very open to discussions. And then we are telling our children, like, if you turn at this age, like you're going to marry, you'll be parents. So we are preparing you for that kind of responsibility. So we are very, very open for that.
Okay. Type. What else can we do? And it could be the other way around as well. It could be a sister telling her father or mother that there's a brother in the community that wants to talk to you.
When my son was 16 and he asked me to marry a sister, asked me to meet the sister, I went and I met her. And I think it was a celebration. So I said, if you feel the same way next Eid, which is like a year from now, then I will be more than happy to support you and do your wedding. 3 months later, they were broken up.
Okay. So I see this as an opportunity to teach them about that next stage in life, responsibility, taking care of themselves, a vision for their life, a purpose for their life, right? Why you need a partner to support you in the mission, as a believer, doing certain things, and connecting their career aspirations with their deen. That's important. And then they can have a second person, a person to kind of support them in that. And then, like you said, usually it's emotional more at that stage, but we don't want to kill it. We want to nurture it and tie it into career goals, into a bigger mission of a Muslim in life goals, your ticket to Jannah. So it might take you guys 3 years to get to know each other better and be prepared and ready. And in that interim period, let's talk to the parents of the other side, and see where they stand on this issue and so forth. But just entertaining the idea and coaching them in an Islamic way in itself is a very positive experience. What a lot of parents unfortunately do is, no, we can't do this, you're too young. I've seen this from many brothers. They come talk to me and they say, my father said I'm too young, I have to wait till college. Some, brothers, alhamdulillah, Allah has given them wisdom and sabr to be, respectful and to be on their deen. But some start to find back ways to do things. And then they would completely go off tangent. So they start to have a relationship with a non-Muslima, or do something incorrectly. Or they go get married and they come Saturday to their parents' home. It's like, hey, I got married on Thursday. I mean, I've seen this, some parents call me. It's like, my son got married last week. And they robbed their parents from that joy. I mean, they got married Islamically at a masjid and everything, but the parents were not there, right? They didn't even know. And worse, of course, there could be a relationship that's illicit or incorrect. So these are things we need to also be forthcoming to talk to them about it. If they're in high school already, especially public school, you can take it granted that half of the class is already dating. Half the class has some sort of relationship. They're dating, they're meeting after school at the coffee shop, they're eating together, they're hanging out together, whatever. After the football game, they see each other. The other half of the school, Muslim or non, probably not doing that, but half is a big percentage. And then the seniors and juniors, it's more involved in that, right? So it's okay for you to go and start a discussion with them in a way that's, again, natural, right? If when there were 3 and 7 and 9, we're reading stories to them, and now it's going to be natural at 16 and 17 to talk about their plans in life, right? You're not going to go and say, have you been thinking of getting married? Because probably that's not what they've been thinking about. But what are your thoughts about the next stage in life? What are you trying to do with school and college? And, how do you see yourself, getting to have a partner in life and so on? And as part of that, we can, of course, explain the proper relationship between a brother and a sister. All right, there's... Mm-hmm.
A 17 years old talking to 14 years old, this is dangerous, legally dangerous, that they can get really in trouble and mess their whole life if the parents of the 14 years old start to complain about it.
No.
So there is this underage thing that they need to really be careful about.
Jazakumullah khair, that adult minor type of relationship. When it comes to gender relations, a subtle thing that's creeping in, gender identity, same gender, is that some people are born neither male or female, or they're born both, right? And that's an argument that's starting to appear even in Muslim circles. Some even Muslim leaders are starting to say that. One of our videos, in a group chat, some Muslim leaders critiqued it. They said, this is too closed-minded. So we said, no, this is the normal. We're talking about the normal human being, which is dhakar wa untha, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran in multiple places. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the male is different than the female. So there's no third. It's just two genders. He said, but what about these types of people? He said, yeah, they're not normal people. I mean, there are people who are born blind. There are people who are born deaf. There are people who are born without limbs. There are people who are born with mental, challenges. And because of that, they're not mukallaf. They don't have accountability, or their accountability is different than the standard. So we don't want to mix things. So that's a subtle argument that's creeping in. And our kids could be vulnerable if they don't understand the foundation, the principles, right? And that's one of the tactics that these groups use. They use facts and then present them in a way that it dilutes Islamic principles, right? So for example, the example I just gave, it is a fact that yes, there could be a person born with both a male and a female. But the Islamic fiqh even has rules for that person to decide how do they pray or fast or what to go about with their life. And we're not going to get into that now, but there are whole, scholars who studied this. And, if the person cannot determine, then the Sharia gives the person the right to decide what to do at a certain, point in their life and so forth. Another argument that is seeping in as well is that they talk about feminine males who lived during the time of Prophet ﷺ in Medina and how he kind of accommodated them in the middle of society. So yes, there were 3 people who did not show desire towards sisters. There were 3 men. So the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to mix in the circles of the sisters. But then one of them described a sister to a Muslim brother. Immediately the Prophet ﷺ kicked all 3 of them out of Medina. Immediately. He shunned them completely. Right? So these are things, they tell you half the story, they don't tell you the other half. Like they tell you the first part, they don't tell you about the shunning and so forth. Or they don't tell you about the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ says Allah curses the male who acts like a female and the female that acts like a male, right? And here the Prophet ﷺ is talking about someone who intentionally acts that way. Not someone who has a soft-spoken voice, a brother who's soft-spoken, or a sister who is a little maybe thick voice. That's how they're created. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not accountable for that. But the hadith is talking about someone who dresses like a woman, someone who talks like a woman intentionally, right? So these are things that are seeping in to confuse people or to justify a certain way of lifestyle. So again, these are things we can talk about, we can try to be familiar with at least, so if it comes up, we know how to respond to our children, or we can bring it up beforehand and explain, that Islam is a tolerant deen, but the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And anything that's, a special case has its special cases rules. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just and fair. He's not going to burden a person with something they have no hand in it, right? So the norm is not that the majority of people are born in a certain way. That's not the norm. That's the special case. So inshallah that could be helpful. Screen time, let's talk a little bit about screen time, technology, right? Sometimes we are, yes, sure. Mm-hmm. Brother, bring the mic.
So could you talk a little bit more about how you might approach that situation? So like our daughter is in kindergarten and has like a buddy that they got matched with, who's a little bit older, kind of like a mentor who identifies as both a boy and a girl. And so, our daughter kind of talks about it sometimes in terms of like pronouns, but we just didn't know how to, approach that situation. If that makes sense, if you have thoughts on that.
That's a very challenging situation. So, people behave based on how they're developed, right? Any system reacts based on its structure. So, think of a slinky. You let it go, it's going to bounce up and down, right? We did this experiment yesterday. If we take it and stretch it across the room, it's going to deform and act as a deformed slinky. It won't bounce anymore, right? So that child, the friend of your daughter, she's been deformed by the environment around her. And now her structure, her mind and ideas have changed. So she's going to start to behave based on that. So if she thinks her ideas, her structure now is both male and female, she's going to act like that, right? Which means she would have no identity, like she can't act in one way or another, or she'd do this and do that. And that's going to confuse your daughter, right? So you want to explain to your daughter that concept, that what you eat is what you're going to be. What you read is going to help define your structure. How we build ourselves will tell us how we're going to respond, right? Then you explain to her that this is where we go back to our deen. You read to her the story, for example, of the mother of Maryam, peace be upon her. She wanted a son to serve in the way of God because boys or men are responsible to carry that message from one generation to another. That's their job. Like me, I'm at home I cook the food for you guys. You tell your daughter that, right? But dad, he maybe fixes the car because he's better at it, right? So now she starts to understand there's a role for each gender. It doesn't mean dad can't cook or mom can't fix the car, but he's just better at that than I am, and I'm better at this than he is. And Allah tells us in the Quran, when Maryam, peace be upon her, was blessed by Isa, alayhi salam, she said, when the mother of Mary was blessed by Mary, she said what? الذَّكْرُ لَيْسَ كَالْأُنْثَى وَلَيْسَ الذَّكْرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. The male is not like a female. You know better what I've given, what I've delivered, and they're not the same. And I wanted a boy so he can serve in your way. But I seek protection from you to protect her from the shaitan. So Allah, being the most gracious, the most kind, He gave her something better than what she asked for. She asked for a boy to serve. He gave her a very special girl who would become the mother of a very special boy. So you explain a story like that and you say, see, there's only a boy and a girl, and Allah tells us they're different. They have equal rights, but they're not, that doesn't mean they have to do everything the same. So for example, there are days mommy doesn't pray, but dad does, according to her age and so forth. So you want to set those key fundamental facts in place, right? And you have the right to go to the school and say, I don't want her to be teamed up with so-and-so, right? I want her to team up with someone else. And that's where, the community has to also be present. If the school starts to hear that from multiple families or the school district is involved, then of course, that's another angle. That's where the collaboration happens, with the school. Now, if you feel that you can't overcome this, then that's where you want to look for other options. Homeschooling, a private Islamic school, things like that. So we weigh the, least of two harms, inshallah. Challenging situation, especially at this young age, because they're sponges taking everything, and they don't think, they don't know too much. So we have to be careful. It's inshallah. But the same concept applies to theology, right? She could be teamed up with someone who worships a cow, right? How can she reconcile that? So that's why we constantly have to teach them these principles, right? And of course, that's more dangerous than something else like that. All right, before we close, maybe we talk real quick about screen time and then have a Q&A, because I think we're also approaching Dhuhr. So when it comes to phones, again, we have to deal with things at an appropriate age. Some mistakes that we fall into with parents, especially the older ones, is we take phones away from them. That's very harmful. If you give your child a phone, you're giving them the phone. You take it away, you broke the trust. So all this stuff we're talking about, open communication and trust and emotional intelligence, it went down the drain. So don't give them the phone until you know they can control it. My personal opinion, kids should get phones at the age of 11. Now, how they use them, you can control that a little bit. So maybe they're not on social media. Get them on an old phone or a phone that's not too much memory. They just do email on it, text messaging to dad and mom, things like that. So you're teaching them how to use the device in a controlled, responsible way. But 11 is a reasonable age to have a phone to call back home and keep an eye on them during the day and so forth. And as they grow, and we've been talking about Salah and Aqeeda and all these other things, they start to use it responsibly just like anything else. Just like a knife in the kitchen. I mean, they could cut their fingers with it or they can slice a piece of bread or whatever. Right? So it's all about how to introduce things. But when we start to prevent people from stuff, especially when everyone else has it, it becomes a problem. They're going to, develop either issues with the parents if they're patient enough, or they're going to find ways to get a device, elsewhere. That all being said, we just had an example from the sister here, phone or no phone, right? The outside influence is with us, next door, in the classroom, at the grocery store. I mean, you could walk up to the grocery store and say, Mom, why is this person like that, right? So really, phones are not the issue today. The issue with the phone is just how do we use it? because social media could become addictive, screen after screen or scrolling up and down. So that's where you want to teach them how to control their time, how to control things. Rather than giving them a phone and just letting them have it, show them how can they use Instagram to learn about good Islamic content, how to find good videos on YouTube, how to watch certain classes, and so forth. Maybe they follow their masjid, So you give them a phone at 11 and you show them the account of the masjid, they follow the masjid, they follow the halaqas of the imam on YouTube. Now they're getting, inshallah, a positive way to use it. But especially in high school, they use it to log in sometimes to their school computers, and things like that. All right, any other questions? Anything we haven't talked about? Anything anyone would like to share? Other experiences? Savvy?
Parents who aren't technologically savvy, they should probably invite somebody who is, and to do a lecture like this to teach a workshop how to have control over the phone without really telling, so you can know what your child is going and how long your child is. I saw my son telling his child that he watched more than 15 minutes of cartoon or something. And he was supposed to use YouTube for partly 15-minute drawing and 15-minute watching, but he didn't do that. He watched more than 15 minutes, so he had a consequence for that. So I would never be able to do that, but my son know how to do it, so maybe they need to teach other parents how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Having parent groups is so important. Sometimes we feel uncomfortable talking with other parents about our challenges, but I think it's a very powerful way to work together, to develop solutions, to learn from each other. Just FYI, by the age of 8, most kids have seen something related to pornography, unintentionally, by age of 8, Muslim or non-Muslim, right? Most kids would just brush it off. At that age, they feel it's disgusting and they just move on. But some are curious and they go back and try to find it. By 12, I know this from many Muslim youth, they've seen something at least once. And by 14, at least half the boys have seen something multiple times, and some of them are already, doing it daily. So it is there, right? And the thing is, we got to talk to them about this before that age, before they get there. So at 12, 13, typically in public schools, 8th graders, half the class watches porn, on a regular basis, weekly, whatever. So it's not uncommon. So we gotta be proactive, and having parent circles, 10 parents or whatever. Maybe you have a high school group, high school parent group, middle school, elementary school, can exchange ideas. And always the first child in the family is the one we're testing things out. My first daughter, she's different than our last one. She's the one who got more of the rough treatment, and we're trying things out and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, sister, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I really want to emphasize on the involvement with your kids' education. Our public school are very open to ideas. They're willing to help. So I just want to kind of underline what you said about involving the school early on. Like when my son turned 7, that's the time. It's like I went to school, he turned 7, he had to pray. Please provide him time to pray. The teacher, since then, been telling him every single day, okay, yeah, it's time to go pray, and they provide room for him. Also, please read all the emails you get. I sit on the sex education board in the Aqeeda school. We're trying to approve a curriculum. There's 12 people in the board. There's only 3 of us who are straight. The rest are not. So if we're gonna approve that, somebody have to come. When we send an email, please come and join, speak about it. Everybody have to jump in. It makes me really upset and sick to kind of sit with those people, and they have to talk. They have their voice heard, but our voice is not heard. So even for non-Muslim, I don't understand why they're not interested to be in the board. Just read the emails, get involved with everything, get involved in sport, be a voice to be heard in every aspect. Your kids really enjoy it when you're in school. Like, oh, my mom is here. And you know, my dad is supporting me, cheering me on a sideline kind of thing when I'm doing sport. So I just really want to emphasize to please, there's a lot of things, there's a huge wave coming our way, and it's very challenging to raise kids in this time of age. And thank you so much for giving us this lecture and having this youth support group. But let's all do our job to raise a great generation, inshallah, Muslim generation. So I see a lot of challenge in my board, and it's really hard. And they're speaking about adults and young under 16, and how can we, they don't want that to be an issue anymore. So if we break that rules and they're taking it all the way to the Fed, then we're gonna have a lot of rape and stuff like that, but you can't call it rape. You know what I mean? So we really have to get involved before, because I've been in this country for a long time. I have never seen the moral going so down so fast, and that's where we come in and jump in and do our rules to stop it.
Jazakallah khair. I want to comment on one thing here real quick before I forget, inshallah. We have to also explain to our kids how to be politically correct. So you talk to your child about what's right and wrong, and then they make a comment to the other child, and it becomes a problem, right? It's sort of like lack of diversity or prejudice or whatever it is. And that in itself is another challenge, right? How now does the kid reconcile, especially at this young age? So sometimes the best option is to find an alternative. If we find too many hurdles that the child can't handle, the family or the community is not ready at large. And that's why Islamic schools are so important, right? Islamic schools should not be seen as the box that will protect our kids and put them in. No, it should be seen as the box that will prepare them for those external challenges. So they have a strong enough identity to know how to fight or keep their identity strong. But it's not supposed to be a cave that shields them from the world. It's supposed to be a machine that teaches them how to develop and so forth. And like the sister said, definitely interacting with your child's teacher once a year is too infrequent. I'd say once a month is not a bad frequency. Most parents don't reach out to teachers. My daughter, she's a second grade teacher in public school, and I think out of her 30-kid class, maybe 2 or 3 teachers reach out. So the percentage is probably 10% at most. So if you're one of those people who are reaching out, the teacher, one, would see that you care and will go out of her way or his way to share more information about your child, to give you advice, to give you personalized things about your child academically and other personal things as well. But when teachers don't get that reception, they feel that the parent either doesn't care or the parent is too busy. Plus the teachers are overworked. They work when they go home, they do stuff, so if they don't get that input, they're going to forget, even if they wanted to reach out. So try at least once a month to talk to most teachers in the school that deal with your child, even in high school. It's not a bad idea to stay in touch with them, inshallah. You get a different perspective on what's going on with them. All right, lastly, tfaddal.
I'll make it quick, inshallah. I think the major underlining subject we talked about is our identity as a Muslim in this country. And to create Muslim identity, we have to create a sense of community, which in our community, I'm just talking to everybody here as a parents, we need to have a parental support. Everyone tries to build their own bubble to kind of keep their children in their own way. That's not going to work. It's as a matter of time that bubble will burst. and you're not going to be able to do yourself. So we need, as a community, not to use the masjid as just a spiritual place to just worship, but also use as a sense of community connection. We need to create that. That's not going to happen in its own. We have to take an action. We have to participate, and everyone has to get involved and do it. In this masjid, very much, we tried multiple times to do that, and there's a lot of lack in it, and we would like people to come in and participate and create that sense of community.
Yeah, barakallahu feek. So speaking about that, there's a WhatsApp group here if you'd like to join. We'll use it just to share, inshallah, educational information. So no advertisements or posts or anything like that, but mostly, experiences of families. We can share that with other people, inshallah. So please feel free to join that group. Obviously, topic has too much to talk about, so this is just scratching the surface of the iceberg, as they say. And the brother's point here, again, besides having parent groups, you could have special groups that focus on particular things. Another way to keep the kids involved is sports, especially at the masjid, where we can be coaches to different activities, take them on field trips. The kids love hiking, going outdoors, fishing, mashallah. These are things that help, inshallah, build their identity. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khairan. It's really an honor being here. Thank you for your attention and great ideas and thoughts. Please, visit our website, support the organization. If you have any questions, we'll be here, inshallah, after Dhuhr for a little bit, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات تواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر جزاكم الله خيرا